I'm Ethan Parker, 24, and the day I got my engineering degree should have been the proudest moment of my life. Instead, I walked across that stage alone, frantically checking my phone for messages that never came. While I was receiving my diploma, my parents were hosting a Super Bowl party 30 miles away. What hurt worse? 3 days later, they showed up at my apartment asking for money. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from today? If you've ever felt abandoned by someone who should have been there for you, hit subscribe and join me on this journey of heartbreak and unexpected redemption. Growing up in suburban Boston, I learned early that my achievements would always take a backseat to my parents' social calendar. Thomas and Rebecca Parker weren't exactly negligent. They kept me fed, clothed, and housed, but emotional support was as rare as a Boston winter without snow. My father worked in insurance sales, the kind of guy who believed networking was more valuable than family time. My mother ran a small boutique downtown and spent most evenings planning community events or attending them with Dad. They weren't wealthy, but they prioritized appearing successful to their friends above all else. When I was 12, I won the regional science fair with a project on renewable energy. The competition fell on the same weekend as my parents' annual lake house trip with their college friends. "We can't miss it, Ethan," my mother explained. "We've had this planned for months. Your grandmother will take you." Grandma Rose did take me, and she beamed with pride when they called my name. But I remember scanning the audience, hoping my parents had changed their minds. They hadn't. By high school, I'd accepted that my accomplishments would never outrank their social obligations. When I made varsity baseball as a sophomore, my parents missed my first game for a charity gala. When I was named valedictorian, they attended the graduation ceremony but left immediately after my speech for a neighbor's retirement party, missing the moment I received my diploma. Despite their physical and emotional absence, they had very clear expectations. I would attend a prestigious university, secure a high-paying job, and eventually support them in their retirement. "We've given you everything," my father would say. "The least you can do is make sure we're comfortable when we're old." College was my escape. I chose Massachusetts Institute of Technology, partly for its engineering program and partly because the scholarship I'd earned covered most of my tuition. My parents contributed nothing to my education, claiming they couldn't afford it while simultaneously renovating their kitchen for the third time in 10 years. At MIT, I worked 3 jobs: mornings at a campus coffee shop, evenings at the engineering lab, and weekends tutoring high school students. Between work and classes, I hardly slept, but for the first time, I was building a life that wasn't centered around my parents' approval. Dr. James Maxwell, my thermodynamics professor, became the mentor I'd always needed. He noticed my exhaustion one day after class and invited me to his office. "You're one of my brightest students, Ethan, but you look like you're running on fumes." I broke down that day, confessing everything: the financial struggle, the parental disappointment, the bone-deep weariness. Instead of platitudes, Dr. Maxwell offered practical help. He hired me as his research assistant, a position that paid better than my other jobs combined and gave me valuable experience in my field. "Your parents' limitations aren't your own," he told me. "Some people aren't equipped to give what their children need. That's their failing, not yours." My roommate Brian Thompson had the opposite family situation. His parents called weekly, sent care packages monthly, and visited each semester. They attended every parent weekend and proudly displayed his academic achievements on their social media. At first, their attention made me uncomfortable, a stark reminder of what I lacked, but eventually, the Thompsons began including me in their visits, even inviting me to their home for Thanksgiving when my parents went on a Caribbean cruise. As graduation approached, I dared to hope things might be different. I was finishing with honors, had secured a promising job interview, and had even won a departmental award for my senior project. Surely this milestone would merit my parents' full attention. The ceremony was scheduled for Sunday, February 13th, Super Bowl Sunday. When I realized the conflict, my stomach sank, but I called them anyway, 2 months in advance. "Mom, Dad, my graduation ceremony is on Super Bowl Sunday. "Oh, honey, that's unfortunate timing," my mother said. "You know we host the biggest Super Bowl party in the neighborhood every year." "I know, but this is my college graduation. I'm getting my engineering degree from MIT. Could you possibly skip the party just this once?" My father took the phone. "Ethan, we've had this planned for months. The Wilsons and the Montgomerys are coming. I can't just cancel on them now. Can't you get your diploma in the mail?" "It's not about the diploma, Dad. It's about celebrating the achievement. I've worked so hard for this." "And we're proud of you," he said dismissively. "But this party is important for my business connections. Surely you understand that." I hung up feeling foolish for having expected anything different. Dr. Maxwell assured me he would be there, and Brian's family immediately changed their plans to attend as well. I was grateful, but the hollow ache of my parents' rejection persisted. As February approached, I made one last attempt, sending them the ceremony details, their tickets, and a handwritten note about how much their presence would mean to me. My mother texted back, "We'll try our best, sweetheart, but no promises. The caterer is already booked." The night before graduation, I called one final time. The background noise of their party preparations nearly drowned out my father's voice. "Dad, I just wanted to confirm you and Mom are coming tomorrow." He hesitated. "Listen, son, something's come up. The Johnsons are bringing their daughter's fiancé who might be interested in life insurance. This could be a huge commission for me." I said nothing, the familiar disappointment settling over me like an old, heavy coat. "You understand, right?" he pressed. "This is business. We're very proud of you, of course." "Of course," I echoed, my voice hollow. "Enjoy the game." That night, I stared at the ceiling of my dorm room, trying to convince myself that it didn't matter, that I was used to their absence. But this was different. This was supposed to be the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. And once again, I would face it alone. Graduation day dawned bright and cold, a quintessential February morning in Massachusetts. I stood before the mirror in my apartment, adjusting my tie beneath the black graduation gown. Brian had already left to meet his parents for breakfast before the ceremony. He'd invited me along, but I'd declined, still holding on to the faint hope that my parents might surprise me. My phone chimed with a text at 8:47 a.m. "Mom, sorry honey, definitely can't make it today. The caterer showed up with the wrong appetizers and the Wilsons are bringing extra guests. Just too much happening. Take lots of pictures. So proud of you." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before setting my phone down. The words blurred through unexpected tears that I quickly wiped away. I wasn't a child anymore. I should be past this disappointment. I texted back a simple, "Okay," and continued getting ready. A few minutes later, another text arrived. "Dad, tough break about today, son. But these connections are important for our future. Your mother says the Johnsons' son-in-law might become a major client. That could mean thousands in commissions. You studied economics, you understand opportunity cost, right? We'll celebrate when you visit next weekend." Opportunity cost. As if missing my graduation was simply a rational economic decision. As if my achievement, graduating with honors from one of the most prestigious engineering programs in the country, was merely an unfortunate scheduling conflict. I didn't respond to that message. Dr. Maxwell called as I was leaving my apartment. "Ethan, I'm at the auditorium already. Just wanted to make sure you're on your way." "Yes, sir. Just heading out now." "Your parents get in okay?" I swallowed hard. "They couldn't make it. Super Bowl party." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "I see," he finally said. "Well, my wife and I saved seats near the front. We'll be cheering loudly enough for 4 people." The MIT campus was transformed that morning, with proud families clutching bouquets and balloons, taking photos of their graduates against the historic buildings. I navigated through them, acutely aware of my solitude among their celebrations. In the gathering area for graduates, I found Brian, who immediately pulled me into a hug. "My parents brought an extra boutonniere for you," he said, handing me a small white flower. And they want to take us to dinner after, if you're up for it. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The ceremony proceeded with all the pomp and circumstance these occasions demand. As we waited for our names to be called, I checked my phone once more. Nothing from my parents, but there was a text from my Aunt Linda, my mother's estranged sister who lived in Seattle. Linda, congratulations, Ethan. Wish I could be there. Your accomplishment is extraordinary, and I'm so proud of you. Call me sometime. I'd love to hear about your plans. I hadn't spoken to Aunt Linda in years. My mother had cut ties with her after some family dispute before I was a teenager, but her message meant more to me in that moment than she could possibly know. Ethan Thomas Parker, Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, with honors. I rose on slightly shaking legs and walked across the stage. Dean Wilson shook my hand and handed me my diploma, smiling broadly. Congratulations, Mr. Parker. Exceptional work. I searched the audience as I crossed the stage, instinctively looking for my parents despite knowing they weren't there. Instead, I found Dr. Maxwell and his wife, standing and applauding. A few rows behind them were Brian's parents, also on their feet, his father taking photos. I should have felt elated. I'd achieved what I'd worked toward for 4 grueling years. Instead, I felt hollow, going through the motions, smiling when appropriate, moving my tassel from right to left when instructed. After the ceremony, families flooded the graduates, bearing flowers, gifts, and proud embraces. Brian's parents found us quickly, his mother wrapping me in a warm hug. We are so proud of both of you, she said, including me naturally in their celebration. Dr. Maxwell and his wife approached next, presenting me with a beautiful fountain pen in an engraved box. For signing all those important engineering contracts in your future, he said with a wink. For a few hours, surrounded by Brian's family and my professor, I almost forgot the absence that had initially defined the day. We took photos, laughed, and celebrated over a lunch that the Thompsons insisted on paying for. Where are your folks, Ethan? Brian's father asked innocently as we were finishing dessert. They had a prior commitment, I said, the practiced excuse falling easily from my lips. An important business thing. The awkward silence that followed said everything. As afternoon faded into evening, the Thompson family headed back to their hotel, and Dr. Maxwell and his wife departed with final congratulations. Brian had plans to meet friends for a celebration, inviting me along, but I declined, suddenly desperate to be alone. In the nearly empty parking lot behind the auditorium, I sat in my car and finally allowed the tears to come. Not just for today's disappointment, but for a lifetime of them. For every milestone marked without my parents' presence, for every achievement met with distracted acknowledgement, for the recognition I'd stopped expecting but still painfully desired. My phone rang, cutting through my thoughts. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I answered, hastily wiping my eyes although she couldn't see me. Hello? Ethan! Honey, we just wanted to call and congratulate you. You're on speaker, Dad's here too. In the background, I could hear the unmistakable sounds of their Super Bowl party. Cheering, laughter, the announcer's voice booming through their expensive sound system. Thanks, I said flatly. How was the ceremony? Did they mispronounce your name again like at high school graduation? No, Mom. It was fine. That's wonderful, honey. Hey, everyone say congratulations to Ethan. He graduated college today. A chorus of distracted congratulations echoed in the background, quickly drowned out by cheers for a touchdown. Oh! Did you see that play? My father exclaimed, clearly not speaking to me. Incredible! Mom, I should go, I said. Okay, sweetie. We're so proud of you. Maybe stop by next weekend and we can have a little celebration, just the 3 of us. Sure, I said, knowing I probably wouldn't. Gotta go, the halftime show is starting. Love you. The call ended, and I sat in silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed too beautiful for such a hollow day. 3 days after graduation, I was sorting through job applications in my apartment when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Ethan, darling, your father and I are in the area. We thought we'd stop by to see your apartment before you move out. Are you home?" I hesitated. I hadn't expected to see them until the weekend, if at all. "Yeah, I'm home." "Wonderful! We'll be there in 15 minutes. Is there a coffee shop nearby? I'm absolutely dying for a latte." Before I could answer, she hung up. I looked around my modest apartment, suddenly seeing it through their eyes: the second-hand furniture, the stack of engineering textbooks I couldn't afford to buy and had borrowed for the semester, the single MIT pennant that represented my only real decoration. True to their word, my parents arrived 15 minutes later. My mother swept in first, designer sunglasses pushed up into her perfectly highlighted hair, wearing an outfit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Ethan!" she exclaimed, air-kissing both my cheeks. "Graduate! How does it feel to be done?" My father followed, clapping me on the shoulder. "There's our MIT man. Sorry about Sunday, son. Business is business, you know how it is." I nodded stiffly, accepting their belated congratulations with practiced grace. My mother produced a small gift bag from her purse. "Just a little something to say congratulations," she said. Inside was a coffee mug with "World's Greatest Graduate" printed on it. The price tag was still attached to the bottom, $6.99. "Thanks," I said, setting it on my kitchen counter. "So, tell us about this job you're interviewing for," my father said, making himself comfortable on my couch. "Starting salary in the six figures, I imagine?" "It's an entry-level position at an engineering firm. The salary is competitive, but not six figures." My mother looked disappointed. "But it's engineering. We always heard engineers make a fortune right out of school." "That's not exactly how it works," I explained. "There's a progression." My father waved his hand dismissively. "You'll climb the ladder quickly, I'm sure. You've always been the smart one in the family." They spent the next 20 minutes talking about the Super Bowl party, how impressed the Johnsons had been with the catering, how the Wilsons had brought an expensive bottle of scotch, how my father had indeed secured a meeting with the potential client. "The game itself was a bit of a letdown," my mother said, "but the networking was invaluable." I nodded, wondering when they would mention my graduation again, or perhaps apologize sincerely for missing it. They did neither. Instead, my father cleared his throat and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Son, there's actually a reason we stopped by today. Besides congratulating you, of course." My mother nodded encouragingly. "Your mother and I are thinking of renovating the kitchen again. The Montgomerys just redid theirs with this gorgeous Italian marble, and frankly, our granite is looking a bit dated." I stared at him, waiting for the connection to me. "The thing is," he continued, "with the party expenses and your mother's new car lease, we're a bit cash poor at the moment. We were hoping, now that you're going to be earning an engineer's salary, you might be able to help us out." The request hung in the air between us. I couldn't have been more stunned if he'd asked me to fly to the moon. "Help you out," I repeated slowly. "With your kitchen renovation." "Just a loan," my mother interjected quickly. "Until your father's commission comes through. $10,000 should cover it." $10,000. I echoed, my voice hollow. "Mom, Dad, I don't even have a job yet. Just interviews. And when I do get hired, I'll have student loans to pay back." My father looked genuinely confused. "But you had scholarships." "Partial scholarships." I still had to take out loans for living expenses. And I worked 3 jobs to minimize those. "Well, surely you can get a small personal loan," my mother suggested. "With your degree as collateral, banks would be falling over themselves to lend to you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Let me get this straight. You couldn't attend my graduation because you were hosting a Super Bowl party. And now, 3 days later, you're asking me for $10,000 for a kitchen you don't need?" My father's expression hardened. "That's not fair, Ethan. The party was a business necessity. And we're not asking for a handout, just a loan between family. Like the loan I gave you for the roof repairs last summer? I asked. The $2,000 you still haven't paid back? We've given you everything, my mother said, her voice rising slightly. We put a roof over your head for 18 years. We fed you, clothed you, gave you every advantage. I laughed, the sound devoid of humor. Every advantage? You didn't pay a dime for my education. You missed every important milestone in my life because something else was always more important. And now you want me to fund your kitchen renovation? The door to my apartment opened, and Brian walked in, stopping short when he saw my parents. Sorry, he said. I didn't know you had company. It's fine, I said. Brian, these are my parents, Thomas and Rebecca Parker. Mom, Dad, this is my roommate, Brian Thompson. Pleasantries were exchanged, though my parents seemed annoyed by the interruption. We should probably get going, my father said, standing. Think about what we discussed, Ethan. Family helps family. My mother hugged me stiffly. We really are proud of you, honey. The party was just unfortunate timing. After they left, Brian looked at me questioningly. They want me to loan them $10,000 for a kitchen renovation, I explained. Right after missing my graduation for a Super Bowl party. Brian's expression would have been comical under different circumstances. Are they serious? Deadly serious. They think I'm about to start making engineer money and want to cash in before I've even received my first paycheck. What are you going to do? I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I have no idea. The truth was, despite everything, some part of me still desperately wanted their approval. Some broken piece inside me still believed that if I could just be successful enough, generous enough, they might finally see me as worthy of their time and attention. But another part, a part that was growing stronger by the day, recognized the pattern for what it was, a one-way relationship where I would always give and they would always take, where my achievements would never outrank their social calendar, where my worth was measured solely by what I could provide. As I sat there in my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of my college life and on the brink of my professional one, I knew I was at a crossroads. The path I chose now would define not just my relationship with my parents, but my relationship with myself for years to come. The days following my parents' visit were some of the darkest I'd experienced. I went through the motions, preparing for job interviews, boxing up my apartment, but internally, I was spiraling. Each night, I'd lie awake, replaying years of disappointments and absences, examining them under the harsh light of my parents' recent behavior. A week after their visit, I met Dr. Maxwell for coffee. He noticed my distraction immediately. You look like you've been wrestling with demons, Ethan, he said, stirring his coffee. What's going on? I told him everything, the graduation absence, the money request, the years of emotional neglect thinly veiled as parental support. He listened without interruption, his expression growing increasingly troubled. I've suspected for years that your relationship with your parents was complicated, he said when I finished. But this crosses several lines. What should I do? I asked, hating how young and lost I sounded. I can't tell you that, he replied gently. But I can tell you that toxic relationships rarely improve without significant change, usually on both sides. And sometimes distance is the only way to gain perspective. Distance. The word echoed in my mind all afternoon. That evening, I found myself researching job opportunities outside of Boston. I had always assumed I'd stay local after graduation, but now the thought of remaining so close to my parents felt suffocating. The next day, I had my first therapy session, something Dr. Maxwell had been suggesting for months. Dr. Rivera listened as I unraveled the tangled history of my relationship with my parents. What you're describing, she said carefully, sounds like a pattern of emotional neglect. Your parents provided for your physical needs but consistently prioritized their social standing and desires over your emotional well-being. They're not bad people. I found myself defending them. They just value different things. Different things than what? She asked. Than me, I admitted, the truth of it washing over me like cold water. That night, unable to sleep, I found myself scrolling through old family photos on my laptop. There were surprisingly few of just me with my parents. Most included their friends, business associates, or showed me standing alone at various achievements, science fairs, baseball games, graduation. A timeline of solitary accomplishments. On a whim, I searched for my Aunt Linda on social media. My mother's younger sister had been estranged from our family for years after some dispute I'd never fully understood. I found her easily, Linda Carson, living in Seattle, working as an art therapist. Her profile showed a vibrant woman with kind eyes, surrounded by colorful paintings and smiling friends. Before I could overthink it, I sent her a message. "Hi Aunt Linda, it's Ethan. I'm not sure if you remember me, it's been years. I just graduated from MIT with my engineering degree and was thinking about you. Hope you're well." To my surprise, she responded almost immediately. "Ethan. Of course I remember you. Congratulations on your graduation, that's an incredible achievement. I've thought about you often over the years. How are you really doing?" That simple question, "How are you really doing?" broke something in me. I found myself pouring out everything to this woman I barely knew but who was somehow still family. My parents' absence at graduation, their financial request, my growing desperation to escape a pattern I'd only recently recognized. We messaged back and forth for hours. She told me her side of the family rift, how my mother had cut her off after Linda suggested she was prioritizing social status over her family. How she tried to maintain contact with me but my parents had blocked her attempts. "Ethan," she wrote finally, "I know we barely know each other, but I want you to know you have family who cares about you. If you ever need a fresh start, Seattle is beautiful. My guest room is always open." I stared at those words until they blurred through my tears. A fresh start. Family who cares. The possibility seemed almost too precious to consider. That night, I had a vivid dream of walking across the graduation stage again, but this time, instead of searching for my parents in the audience, I simply walked off the other side and kept going, out of the building, out of Boston, towards something new and undefined but somehow full of promise. I woke at 3:17 a.m., my mind clearer than it had been in weeks. I opened my laptop and began browsing engineering positions in Seattle. By dawn, I'd applied to 7 jobs and found 3 promising apartment listings. My phone rang at 7:30 a.m. It was my mother. "Ethan, the contractor needs a deposit by Friday. Have you thought about what we discussed?" "No, hello? No, how are you?" Just straight to the money. "I've thought about it," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "And I won't be able to help with the renovation. But I can't afford it, Mom. I have student loans and I'm still looking for a job. Your father will be very disappointed," she said, her voice cooling. "After everything we've done for you." Something snapped inside me. "What exactly have you done for me? You missed my college graduation for a football game. You've missed every important moment in my life because something else was always more important. You haven't contributed a cent to my education. That's not fair, Ethan. I'm moving to Seattle," I interrupted, the decision crystallizing as I spoke it aloud. "I've applied for jobs there. I need a fresh start." The silence on the other end was profound. "Seattle?" she finally said. "But there's nothing for you in Seattle. Your father has connections here that could help your career. I think I need to make my own connections. This is about the Super Bowl party, isn't it? You're being childish, Ethan. Adults understand that sometimes difficult choices have to be made." "Yes," I agreed. "They do. This is mine." After we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in years, as if I'd set down a burden I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I emailed my Aunt Linda, telling her about my decision. Her enthusiastic response made me smile for what felt like the first time in weeks. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, my laptop open to an airline booking site. The cursor hovered over a one-way ticket to Seattle for the following month, time enough to finish packing, attend my remaining job interviews, and say goodbye to the few friends who mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Your mother is very upset. This Seattle nonsense is just a phase. Come to dinner this weekend and we'll sort everything out. I stared at the message, feeling the familiar pull of obligation, the ingrained desire to please them despite everything. My finger hovered over the keyboard, ready to type my usual acquiescence. Instead, I closed the message and returned to the booking site. With a deep breath, I clicked Purchase on the one-way ticket. As the confirmation appeared on my screen, I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest: hope. The Seattle-Tacoma International Airport was a blur of unfamiliar faces and rain-spattered windows as I collected my 2 suitcases, all I'd brought of my former life. Everything else had been sold, donated, or shipped ahead to a storage unit near my aunt's house. Aunt Linda stood waiting at baggage claim, instantly recognizable from her profile photos despite the years that had passed since I'd seen her in person. She wore a vibrant blue rain jacket and a wide smile, waving enthusiastically when she spotted me. "Ethan!" she called, embracing me tightly. "Welcome to Seattle! Or should I say, welcome home?" The word home caught in my chest. I couldn't remember the last time any place had truly felt like home. Linda's house was a cozy craftsman in the Fremont neighborhood, painted a cheerful yellow with blue trim. Inside, art covered every wall, some professional, some clearly created by her clients, all vibrant with color and emotion. "The guest room is small," she apologized, showing me to a snug but comfortable space overlooking a garden lush with early spring growth. "But it's yours for as long as you need it." "It's perfect," I said honestly. "Thank you for doing this. I know we haven't really been part of each other's lives." She waved away my gratitude. "We're family, Ethan. The real kind, the kind that shows up." That first week in Seattle was a revelation. Linda introduced me to her friends, a diverse group of artists, therapists, teachers, and entrepreneurs who welcomed me without question. We explored the city together, from the famous Pike Place Market to hidden neighborhood cafes. For the first time in my life, I felt no pressure to achieve, to prove my worth through accomplishments. I could simply exist. My second week in Seattle, I interviewed with Northwest Engineering Solutions, a mid-sized firm specializing in sustainable energy systems, exactly the field I'd focused on in my studies. The interview lasted 3 hours, evolving from formal questions to an energetic discussion about recent innovations in solar energy storage. 2 days later, they offered me the position. "It's entry-level," the HR director explained, "but with significant growth potential. We were very impressed with your MIT research project." The starting salary was modest but sufficient. I found a small apartment within walking distance of the office, signing a 1-year lease with a sense of permanence I'd never felt before. My first paycheck arrived 3 weeks after I started work. That same day, my phone rang with my parents' number. "Ethan," my mother began without preamble, "we haven't heard from you in weeks. Your father and I are concerned." "I'm fine," I said, surprised by how calm I felt. "I've settled in Seattle. I have a job and an apartment." "That's good," she said, sounding uncertain. "Listen, your father and I have been thinking about your situation. We realize now might not have been the best time to ask about the kitchen renovation." "Right. But we do have some unexpected expenses coming up. The Homeowners Association is requiring all houses in the neighborhood to repaint this summer, and your father's car needs a new transmission. We were hoping, now that you're working." I closed my eyes, recognizing the pattern so clearly now. "I can't help you, Mom. But you have a job now." Her voice rose. "Surely you can spare something for your parents." "I have student loans," I explained for what felt like the 100th time. "Rent. Living expenses. I'm just starting out." "I don't understand why you're being so selfish," she said, her tone hardening. "After everything we've done for you." In the background, I heard my father take the phone. "Ethan, this attitude of yours is disappointing. Family helps family. It's that simple. Yes, I agreed. Family does help family. But it goes both ways. I ended the call and sat in my new apartment, surrounded by the few possessions I'd brought and the simple furniture I'd purchased secondhand. Despite the sparse surroundings, I felt rich in a way that had nothing to do with money. Over the following months, my parents' calls and texts became increasingly frequent and increasingly focused on financial emergencies. Each time, I politely but firmly declined to help. Each time, they expressed shock and disappointment at my selfishness. With Linda's encouragement, I found a therapist in Seattle, Dr. Monica Chin, who specialized in family trauma and setting healthy boundaries. "What you're doing isn't easy," she told me during one session. "Standing firm against lifelong patterns of guilt and obligation takes tremendous courage." "Sometimes I still feel like I'm being cruel," I admitted. "Like I should just give them what they want." "Let me ask you this," she said. "If you had a child, would you miss their college graduation for a party? Would you ask them for money they don't have, for something you don't need?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Never," I whispered. "I would never do that." "Then why should you accept that treatment from your own parents?" My job at Northwest Engineering Solutions quickly became more than just employment. My supervisor, Marcus Reed, took a genuine interest in my ideas and development. When I mentioned a modification to one of our solar panel mounting systems that might improve efficiency in rainy conditions, he encouraged me to develop the concept further. "This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need," he said, reviewing my proposal. "I'd like you to lead a small team to prototype this." I stared at him in shock. "Lead a team? But I've only been here 4 months." He shrugged. "Good ideas don't wait for seniority, Ethan. You have the skills and the vision. The rest you'll learn as you go." 3 weeks later, my team had a working prototype that improved energy collection by 11% in simulated rainy conditions, a significant improvement in the often cloudy Pacific Northwest. The company immediately filed for a patent with my name listed as lead inventor. When I called Linda to share the news, she insisted on hosting a celebration dinner. "I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice warm with genuine emotion. "Not just for the professional success, but for the person you're becoming." That night, surrounded by Linda and the friends I'd made in Seattle, I realized something profound. This was what family felt like. Not the constant pressure to achieve for someone else's validation, not the transaction of support for obedience, but genuine care that existed regardless of my accomplishments. My phone buzzed during the celebration, a text from my mother. "Your father and I are planning to visit Seattle next month. We'd like to see your apartment and meet your aunt. It's time to put this nonsense behind us and be a family again." I showed the message to Linda, who raised an eyebrow. Translation: They've exhausted their local resources and are expanding their search for funds. Part of me wanted to believe they genuinely wanted reconciliation, but their pattern was too well established to ignore. I texted back. "I'm happy to see you when you visit, but I want to be clear. I won't be providing financial assistance. If that's the purpose of your visit, it might be better to postpone until we can establish a healthier relationship." My mother's response came quickly. "How dare you suggest we're only coming for money? We're your parents. We have every right to visit our only son." I showed the message to Linda, who sighed. Classic. No denial of the financial motive, just outrage that you named it. That night, as I prepared for bed in my small but comfortable apartment, I realized how much had changed in 6 months. I had a job I loved, friends who valued me for myself, and a growing sense of confidence in my own worth, not as measured by grades or achievements, but by the kind of person I was becoming. My parents' impending visit loomed on the horizon, but for the first time, I felt ready to face them on my own terms. Whatever happened, I knew I had built something valuable here in Seattle, a life that was truly mine. My parents arrived in Seattle on a surprisingly sunny Saturday in September. Following my therapist's advice, I arranged to meet them at a coffee shop near Pike Place Market rather than at my apartment, or Linda's house. Neutral territory, Dr. Chen had suggested. And a public place where everyone is more likely to behave civilly. I spotted them immediately, my mother in designer sunglasses and a scarf that probably cost more than my weekly salary, my father checking his watch impatiently. They looked exactly the same, yet somehow smaller than I remembered. "Ethan!" my mother exclaimed, rising for air kisses. "Look at you! Seattle life agrees with you. You look well," my father acknowledged, shaking my hand formally. "A bit thin, perhaps." We ordered coffee and pastries, making awkward small talk about my flight to Seattle, the apartment I'd found, the weather differences between Boston and the Pacific Northwest. For 20 minutes, we maintained the facade of a normal family reunion. Then my father cleared his throat. "So, Ethan, your mother and I have been discussing your situation." "My situation?" I repeated. "This phase you're going through. Moving across the country. Cutting off communication with your family." "I haven't cut off communication," I corrected. "I've responded to every call and text. I'm here now." My mother patted my hand. "Darling, you know what your father means. This distance isn't healthy. We're a family. We should be together, supporting each other." I took a deep breath. I agree that families should support each other. But support goes both ways. "Exactly!" my father exclaimed, as if I'd made his point for him. "Which is why we don't understand your reluctance to help us with these few financial hiccups we've been experiencing." There it was, the real purpose of their visit, emerging less than half an hour into our reunion. "Dad, I've explained multiple times that I'm just starting my career. I have student loans. I can't afford to fund your lifestyle." My mother's expression hardened slightly. "Your father and I gave you everything, Ethan. We sacrificed for years to give you advantages." "What sacrifices?" I asked quietly. "You didn't pay for my education. You missed my graduation for a party. You've never been present for any significant moment in my life." "That's not fair," my father protested. "We gave you a roof over your head, food." "That's the legal minimum required of parents," I interrupted. "You did your legal obligation. But emotionally? You were never there." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Is this what your aunt has been filling your head with? These accusations? Linda has nothing to do with this. This is about our relationship, about patterns I've only recently recognized." "Patterns?" my father scoffed. "You sound like one of those self-help books." "I'm in therapy," I said simply. They exchanged alarmed glances. "Therapy?" my mother repeated. "What on earth for? We gave you a perfectly normal upbringing." "I'm in therapy to understand why I spent 24 years believing I wasn't worth showing up for. Why I thought it was normal for parents to miss every important moment of their child's life. Why I felt obligated to financially support your lifestyle while you couldn't even attend my college graduation." My father's face flushed. "Now listen here." "No, you listen," I said, my voice steady. "I've spent my entire life listening to you, trying to earn your approval, your attention. I'm done with that now. I've built a life here, a good life, with people who actually show up for me." "So that's it?" my mother asked, tears forming. "You're abandoning your family?" "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm establishing boundaries. I'm happy to have a relationship with you both, but it needs to be healthy and reciprocal." "And what does that mean, exactly?" my father demanded. "It means no more financial requests. It means respecting my decisions, even when you don't agree with them. It means acknowledging the pain you've caused, intentionally or not." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "You're being very cruel, Ethan. Very cruel indeed." "I'm being honest," I corrected gently. "For perhaps the first time in our relationship." My father stood abruptly. "I think we've heard enough. Come on, Rebecca." My mother hesitated, looking between my father and me. "You have a choice, Mom," I said quietly. "You both do. We can try to build something new, something healthier, or you can walk away." but I won't go back to the way things were. For a moment I thought I saw something shift in her expression, a flash of recognition, perhaps even regret. But then my father called her name again, and the moment passed. "You know how to reach us when you're ready to apologize," she said, rising to join my father. I watched them walk away, weaving through the crowded coffee shop and disappearing onto the busy Seattle street. I had expected to feel devastated, but instead I felt oddly peaceful. The confrontation I'd feared for months was over, and I was still standing. I texted Linda. "They're gone. Didn't go well, but I said what I needed to say." Her reply came quickly. "Proud of you. Come for dinner tonight? Made your favorite lasagna." That evening, as Linda and I sat on her back porch watching the sunset over the distant mountains, she asked how I was feeling. "Lighter," I said after considering. "Like I've been carrying this weight for years without realizing it, and now it's gone. The weight of their expectations? The weight of trying to earn love that should have been freely given," I clarified. "The weight of believing their absence was somehow my fault." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Your mother was always seeking approval, from our parents, from her friends, from society. She married your father because he had the right family name, the right connections. I don't think she knows how to love without conditions. Do you think they'll ever change?" I asked. Linda considered this. "People can change, but only when they recognize the need to. Right now, they're still blaming you for disrupting their narrative. So what happens now?" She smiled gently. "Now you continue building your life, on your terms, not theirs. And maybe someday, they'll be ready to be part of that life in a healthy way." As the sky darkened and stars began to appear, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from the hollow achievement of walking across that graduation stage alone to the quiet strength I'd found in standing my ground today. My parents had walked away, but I wasn't alone. I had Linda. I had friends who genuinely cared. I had colleagues who respected my work. Most importantly, I had myself, a self I was finally getting to know and value on my own terms. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for tonight, that knowledge was enough. 1 year after my graduation, Seattle felt more like home than Boston ever had. Spring had fully arrived, painting the city in vibrant greens and colorful blooms. My small apartment now felt properly lived in, decorated with local art, engineering books, and photos of my new life, hiking with coworkers in the Cascades, celebrating holidays with Linda, enjoying weekends exploring the Pacific Northwest. Professionally, things had exceeded my expectations. The solar panel modification I'd designed had been implemented in several municipal projects, earning recognition in industry publications. 2 months earlier, I'd been promoted to project team leader, with a corresponding salary increase that allowed me to accelerate my student loan payments. My parents and I had maintained sporadic contact since their visit. Occasional text messages, brief phone calls on holidays, always superficial, always careful. They hadn't directly asked for money again, though they frequently mentioned financial stresses, comments I recognized as indirect attempts that I consistently ignored. On the anniversary of my graduation, I received an unexpected email from my father. "Ethan, your mother and I have been doing some thinking. Perhaps we haven't been as supportive as we could have been. If you're amenable, we'd like to visit Seattle again, on your terms this time." "Dad," I showed the message to Dr. Chen during our weekly session. "What do you think?" I asked. "Is this progress or just another approach?" She considered carefully. "It could be either. The acknowledgement of not being supportive is new. The question is whether they're genuinely reflecting or simply trying a different tactic to re-establish the old dynamic. How do I tell the difference? By setting clear boundaries and observing how they respond," she suggested. "If they're genuinely interested in building a healthier relationship, they'll respect those boundaries." After considerable thought, I replied to my father's email. "I appreciate your message. I would be open to a visit with some conditions, no financial discussions, no attempts to persuade me to return to Boston, and a willingness to talk honestly about our relationship." If you're comfortable with these terms, you're welcome to visit. His response came the next day. Conditions noted. Your mother and I can visit in June if that works for your schedule. It was hardly effusive, but it was acceptance, a small step, perhaps, but still movement in a new direction. Linda was skeptical when I told her about the planned visit. Just be careful, she warned. People don't change overnight, and your parents have a lifetime of patterns to overcome. I know, I assured her. I'm not expecting miracles. Just the possibility of something better than what we had. In the weeks before their visit, I continued building my life in Seattle. Marcus, my supervisor, approached me about joining a special project team developing solar applications for low-income housing. It's a passion project, he admitted. The budget is tight, and the hours might be long, but the impact could be significant. I'm in, I said without hesitation. When do we start? Through this project, I met Rachel Winters, an architectural engineer with a similar background to mine, highly educated but from humble beginnings, determined to use her skills for meaningful change. We bonded quickly over late-night design sessions and shared dedication to the project. My scholarship was the only reason I could attend college, she told me one evening as we worked. My family was supportive but couldn't contribute financially. Now I want to create opportunities for others. Her words sparked an idea that had been forming in my mind for months. The next day, I contacted MIT's financial aid office to discuss establishing a small scholarship fund for engineering students without family financial support. My contribution would be modest at first, but I committed to increasing it as my career progressed. Every bit helps, the financial aid officer assured me. And students benefit not just from the funds but from knowing someone understands their situation. When June arrived, I met my parents at their hotel rather than inviting them to my apartment. Another neutral location, another safety measure that Dr. Chen had suggested. They seemed different somehow, my father less commanding, my mother less polished. Perhaps it was simply seeing them in an unfamiliar context, or perhaps something had genuinely shifted. Your project was mentioned in the Boston Engineering Journal, my father said awkwardly after we'd ordered coffee. The solar panel modification. I saved the article. I blinked in surprise. You did? He nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. It was impressive work. Coming from him, this was unprecedented praise. Thank you, I said simply. My mother reached into her purse and produced a small package. We brought you something. It's not much, but... I opened it carefully to find a framed photo of me as a child, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, proudly displaying a science fair ribbon. I remembered that day, my first science fair win. My parents hadn't attended due to a business dinner, but my grandmother had taken the photo. I found it while cleaning out the attic, my mother explained. I'd forgotten how many science competitions you won. You were always building things, my father added. Even as a small boy. Always figuring out how things worked. Something in their demeanor seemed genuinely different, a hesitancy, perhaps even humility, that I'd never witnessed before. What prompted this visit? I asked directly. Really? They exchanged glances. Your Aunt Linda contacted us, my father admitted. I stiffened. Linda? When? About 2 months ago, my mother said. She didn't tell you? I shook my head, making a mental note to have a serious conversation with my aunt. She suggested we might be missing out on knowing an extraordinary young man. My father continued, looking uncomfortable with this level of emotional honesty. She said some things that were difficult to hear but perhaps needed saying. We've been seeing a counselor, my mother added, surprising me further. Just a few sessions. It was Linda's suggestion. I hardly knew how to respond. These were not the parents I'd known all my life, the status-conscious, emotionally distant people who had missed my graduation for a football game. These were humans. Flawed, uncertain, but possibly trying. I'm glad, I said finally, that you're talking to someone. We haven't been good parents, my father said abruptly. I see that now. We were so focused on appearances, on what other people thought, that we missed what was really important. My mother nodded, tears forming. When Linda showed us photos of your awards ceremony, of the project you developed, I realized how much we missed. How much I don't know about my own son. I felt my throat tighten. It's not too late, I said cautiously, to start knowing each other. But it has to be different than before. We understand, my father said. No financial requests. No pressure to move back. Just getting to know you, if you'll let us. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still moments of tension during their visit, old patterns threatening to reemerge. But there were also new moments, my father asking genuinely interested questions about my work, my mother listening attentively to stories about my life in Seattle, both of them meeting Linda without the expected confrontation. After they returned to Boston, our communication continued, still careful, still finding its way, but more authentic than it had ever been. They sent occasional emails about their counseling progress. I shared updates about my projects and my growing life in Seattle. 1 year after that fateful graduation day, as I stood on the balcony of my apartment watching the sunset over Puget Sound, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From the hollowness of achievement without support to the richness of building a life on my own terms. From the pain of walking across that stage alone to the peace of knowing my worth wasn't determined by others' validation. I thought about the scholarship fund I'd established, still small but growing, and the students it would eventually help, young people walking their own solitary paths, who would know that someone understood their journey. I thought about Dr. Maxwell, who had seen potential in me beyond academic achievement. About Linda, who had offered unconditional support when I needed it most. About Rachel and Marcus and the team creating sustainable housing solutions for families in need. And I thought about my parents, not the perfect parents I'd once desperately wished for, but the imperfect, complicated humans they actually were, possibly beginning their own journey toward change. The graduation I had imagined, proudly walking across the stage with my parents cheering in the audience, had never materialized. Instead, I had received something perhaps more valuable. The courage to walk away from toxic patterns, the strength to build a life aligned with my values, and the wisdom to recognize that sometimes the most painful moments become catalysts for the most profound growth. As the last light faded from the sky, I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. The journey wasn't over. Healing rarely follows a linear path, but I was no longer walking it alone. If you've ever had to make the painful decision to walk away from toxic relationships or establish boundaries with family, I hope my story helps you feel less alone. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest growth. Have you ever had to choose your own well-being over others' expectations? Share your experience in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't determined by others' validation. You are enough, exactly as you are.